Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. In the year 1891, in Blackmore, England, we are transported to a mysterious setting. A solitary man walks through a dense forest, immersed in the quietude of nature. Suddenly, what appeared to be tranquility turns into a terrifying moment when a creature, armed with sharp claws, mercilessly attacks the man. The victim, desperate and severely wounded, cries out for help in vain, as the humanoid beast relentlessly pursues him, putting a tragic end to his existence. The narrative then shifts, and we meet Gwen, an elegant and attentive woman, watching a theatrical play starring her brother-in-law, Lawrence. After the play ends, Gwen gathers her courage and approaches Lawrence, concerned about the disappearance of her husband, Lawrence's brother, which occurred a month ago. In a private conversation, Gwen shares her fear that something terrible may have happened to her husband because, on the same night of his disappearance, 2 lives were tragically taken. However, Lawrence, reluctantly, seems to ignore his sister-in-law's plea, suggesting unresolved family tensions. The next day, while Lawrence is traveling by train, he engages in a meaningful conversation with a kind elder who offers him an unusual crutch with a silver blade. Although Lawrence initially declines the offer, he is surprised to find the crutch as a gift, forcing him to reconsider his decision. Driven by a change of heart, Lawrence decides to embark on a journey to Blackmore to assist his sister-in-law. Upon arriving at the majestic yet neglected family mansion, Lawrence is greeted by his father, John. Lawrence shares his purpose of helping in the search for his missing brother, but his father, with regret, informs him that it is already too late as his brother's body has been found. The butler, Singh, then indicates the location of the body, and upon seeing it, Lawrence is shocked by the gruesome scene. After the disturbing discovery, Lawrence seeks solace in a drink and encounters a group of men discussing the possible causes of the horrifying events and the culprits behind the brutal crimes. Among them, a theory emerges that a fierce and merciless creature is responsible for the horrors. Another assumption points to the newly arrived gypsies in the region, who are supposedly involved in witchcraft, linking them to the crimes. One of the men shares a dark story from 25 years ago when his father found a carnage of partially devoured animals scattered over 400 meters, a scene that deeply traumatized him. He believes that a supernatural creature was behind that atrocity and that not even bullets could stop it. The scary stories are met with skeptical laughter from the others, who do not believe in werewolf legends. Amidst the conversation, the men mention a woman who lived years ago, being the object of scorn and insults, especially for her connection with the gypsies, who regarded her as a gypsy mother. Upon hearing this, Lawrence reacts with indignation and confronts the men, revealing that the woman they speak of was his own mother, now deceased. His heated confrontation results in his expulsion from the bar, leading him back to the family mansion. Gwen reunites with Lawrence after dinner, still grappling with her distress and grief. Lawrence hands her her husband's belongings, seeking to comfort her in the midst of sorrow. Before retiring to rest, he revisits his old room, shared with his brother, reliving memories of the past. A sinister recollection of the night they heard a mysterious noise haunts him, but only Lawrence had the courage to investigate. He encounters his father, John, holding the lifeless body of his deceased mother and a silver blade, insinuating her involvement in some dark act against herself. Back in the present, the family gathers for the funeral of the missing brother, while Gwen, visibly affected, makes the decision to leave for her parents' house, leaving a void in the mansion. Her father, John, advises Lawrence to postpone the investigation into his brother's disappearance until the following day, due to the imminent full moon, fearing that a sinister threat may be lurking inactive during the night. However, Lawrence chooses not to heed his father's advice and sets out for the forest, where he encounters a group of gypsies, beginning a new phase of his intriguing journey. Lawrence embarks on a desperate quest for information about the medallion his deceased brother used to wear. His journey leads him to Maliva, a mysterious woman who may possess knowledge about recent events. Meanwhile, armed men from the locality approach the gypsy camp, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. One of the men, named Kirk, presumes that the commotion is caused by a bear belonging to the gypsies, but the animal proves to be harmless, actually a talented dancer. Suddenly, the terrified bear emits a deafening roar, and one of the men is brutally wounded before dropping dead. Panic spreads among the people as the invisible creature continues its ruthless attacks, targeting especially the defenseless. Amidst the chaos, Lawrence spots the shadow of something colossal moving among the wagons and fires a shot, trying to stop the threat. He heroically throws himself to save a woman about to be attacked, demonstrating his bravery in the face of imminent danger. Lawrence also notices a boy fleeing into the forest, closely pursued by the sinister creature, and without hesitation, he goes after him. Lawrence reaches a rocky area in the forest where his senses alert him to a nearby presence. He advances cautiously but is taken by surprise when the beast attacks him violently, sinking its teeth into his neck. Fortunately, men arrive and open fire, driving the creature away and saving Lawrence from certain death. Gravely wounded, he is taken back to the gypsy camp, despite the unfavorable opinions of the other gypsies who believe that the wounds inflicted by the beast are incurable. However, it is the dedicated Maliva who tends to Lawrence's wounds, giving him a chance at survival. The following morning, he is taken back to his father John's house, who is relieved to see his son alive. Shortly after, Gwen returns to the mansion and joins the efforts to care for Lawrence, who is still recovering from his injuries. Dr. Lloyd is impressed by the rapid healing of Lawrence's wounds, especially a wound on his left arm that he considered irreparable. Later, Lawrence observes his reflection in the mirror and notices that his wounds are nearly healed, something that seems inexplicable to him. He seeks answers from the butler Singh, who is preparing to confront the beast and reveals that he possesses silver bullets, believing it to be the only means to defeat the monster. The appearance of an inspector named Frederick in the town will trigger a turn of events. Frederick visits John's house and requests to speak with Lawrence, interested in the recent events. Lawrence shares his version of events, claiming to have seen little of the creature, but Frederick reveals that the gypsies believe it to be an evil, almost demonic being. Furthermore, the inspector is puzzled by Lawrence's inexplicable healing and promises to send experts to examine him. After the brief conversation with Frederick, Lawrence encounters Gwen by the river, where they share a quiet moment. However, a noise in the distance alerts them to the presence of approaching horses, interrupting their meeting. Back at the house, Lawrence comes face to face with a group of armed men, including Dr. Lloyd. One of them accuses Lawrence of being bitten by the beast and claims that he has been cursed, needing to be taken as a marked one by the creature. The situation becomes tense, but John intervenes, threatening the men with a weapon and ordering them to leave. After the confrontation, Gwen assists Lawrence with the minor wound, but a moment of intimacy between them leaves her bewildered and confused. Disturbed, Lawrence decides to ask Gwen to leave the mansion, fearing for her safety. The next day, with the full moon approaching, the townsfolk prepare a trap for the beast, using an animal as bait. The town mobilizes, melting silverware to create bullets, believing that silver is their only hope against the demon haunting them. In the town's bar, Frederick informs the owner, the wife of one of the victims, that he will spend the night there, despite her insistence that John's family is cursed, and that is where he should stay. However, the inspector maintains his decision not to shelter there. In the mansion, John questions Lawrence about why he sent Gwen away. His son responds that the place attracts dark and threatening events. Later, during the night, Lawrence witnesses his father leaving the house and decides to follow him. John, in turn, goes to his late wife's grave. Upon entering the crypt, he discovers a door leading to an underground chamber. Lawrence, following his father's footsteps, arrives at the same location and finds a room with a chair in the center where someone could be tied up. John appears and reveals that this is a sanctuary he built in memory of his deceased wife. However, what seemed like a gesture of homage soon reveals itself as a cruel plan. Lawrence is lured into the room and suddenly begins to transform into a monstrosity. Lawrence finds himself turned into a fierce and uncontrollable creature, and the entire town hears his terrifying roars during the full moon night. Meanwhile, in the forest, the men manage to capture the beast in a trap. However, one of them falls into his own ambush and faces the monstrous creature, being brutally killed. Another is dragged underground and torn apart. The werewolf finally reveals itself, a hairy, ferocious, and incredibly strong creature that shows no mercy as it pursues and brutally kills its victims.
When Frederick finally arrives at the trap's location, he finds the trail of destruction left by the werewolf and hears its howls on the full moon night.
At dawn, John wakes Lawrence, who doesn't fully comprehend what has happened. His father claims that he has committed terrible acts, and in terror, Lawrence flees across the fields. Men led by Frederick surround Lawrence, believing him to be responsible for the deaths in the town. They take him to a sanatorium in the big city, where he had been treated for mental disorders years before. Dr. Jack, in charge of Lawrence's treatment, subjects him to disturbing procedures, including immersion in cold water and injections. Lawrence desperately tries to share the truth about his father being the true monster, but his words are dismissed. The treatment continues with an electric shock session until he loses consciousness. When Lawrence finally regains consciousness, his father is by his bedside. John reveals dark details of his own journey, including his quest for a legend in the mountains of India and his encounter with an apparently supernatural boy. He returned with a bite on his arm as a reminder of that experience. Sometime later, he returned home, and one night, reality changed. Lawrence actually saw his father transformed into a monster, where he killed his mother. John also tells him that Singh, his trusted friend, for a long time, locked him in the cave every full moon. However, one day Gwen appeared, a person who reminded him of his late wife, but one day his son said they were leaving, so he, not accepting it, drank and became aggressive, ending up knocking out his butler before he could restrain him. That's why he remembers finding his son's lifeless body the next day. Lawrence attempts to attack his father but is restrained by chains around his neck. John reveals that the next full moon is approaching and hands a blade to his son, offering him a choice. Later, Lawrence is tied to a chair and taken to a room where he will be observed during the next full moon night. The goal is to prove that his transformations are just mental delusions. Frederick is present, watching the situation with interest. The doctor explains that due to Lawrence's trauma from witnessing his deceased mother's gruesome mutilation, his mind created a fantastical narrative in which his father is to blame, portraying him as a monster who also turns into a werewolf. Lawrence is given the right to speak and warns people to leave, fearing he will end up killing them all. Everyone laughs at him, but the light of the full moon begins to appear through the window, and Lawrence initiates his transformation into a creature that everyone there had refused to believe. Panic grips the people, and finally, the doctor realizes the truth, fearing the beast that stands before his eyes. Chaos ensues, and everyone tries to flee as the beast breaks free from its restraints and attacks, killing the doctor by throwing him out of the window before escaping over the rooftops of the houses. Frederick, witnessing the scene, tries to shoot the creature but fails. However, he persists in pursuing the beast and calls his colleagues to follow him. In the town center, the werewolf Lawrence terrorizes people and kills everyone in its path, indifferent to the gunfire it receives. The creature eludes Frederick's capture attempts, leaping over armed barricades and leaving the inspector horrified by what he has witnessed. The next morning, under a bridge, we see Lawrence back in human form, fearing being found. Hours later, when Gwen returns home, she discovers Lawrence hiding there, and in his right mind, he shares with her the truth about his father, stating that he is a monster and responsible for the deaths of his brother and mother. Gwen warmly welcomes him and says that if what he says is true, there is a way to help him. Lawrence expresses gratitude for the warm reception, although he regrets not having been in his brother's place beside her. However, he decides to return to the mansion to confront his father. Gwen asks him to stay with her, showing her love and support. They share a kiss when someone knocks on the door. It's Frederick with his men. Gwen lets him in, and he asks about Lawrence, but she denies having seen Lawrence. As a good investigator, Frederick takes Gwen outside while his men search the house for Lawrence but do not find him. In the next scene, we see Lawrence in the streets buying newspapers announcing his escape and the existence of the creature. Meanwhile, Gwen studies Romani books, where she finds images of a beast devouring people, related to a belief in Romani folklore. Lawrence begins the journey back to his home. Gwen seeks out the Romani woman Maliva, and Frederick prepares with silver bullets. The next morning, Gwen meets with Maliva, seeking guidance on how to help Lawrence. The Romani woman questions if Gwen loves him and what choice she will make, condemn him or set him free. Determined to help the man she loves, Gwen is willing to do whatever it takes. However, Maliva tells her that there is no cure for Lawrence and hopes Gwen does not encounter the beast.
In Blackmore, Frederick and his men arrive at the bar, preparing to face the monstrosity on the night of the full moon. The inspector orders them to shoot to kill Lawrence. The son returns home and finds Singh, the butler, brutally killed. He grabs a key and goes up to the room where the silver bullets are stored, reloading his gun, unaware that his father is lurking nearby. Frederick is alerted to the disappearance of one of his men and sees Gwen riding a horse towards the mansion, so he follows her. Meanwhile, in the house, Lawrence searches for his father and finds one of Frederick's men dead in a chair, while his father plays the piano. He points a gun at the old man, who approaches and asks Lawrence to shoot, but the gun fails, as the bullets have no powder. John easily knocks Lawrence to the ground and beats him, but he grabs the blade from the cane, but John is quick and fierce. However, the light of the full moon begins to touch them, and they initiate the transformation of their bodies, turning into two enormous carnivorous beasts with deadly claws. An intense battle unfolds between the two werewolves, causing damage to the house and resulting in a fire on the premises. The two creatures intertwine and struggle to dominate each other, but the beast John proves to be stronger, leaving Lawrence injured on the ground. However, John loses focus and is thrown into the fireplace, where his body begins to burn intensely. Lawrence seizes the opportunity and finishes the fight by beheading his father, putting an end to the existence of the beast that was John. Gwen arrives at the scene and encounters the irrational beast, while Frederick also approaches. However, Gwen prevents the inspector from killing Lawrence, but the werewolf attacks, biting Frederick and throwing him away. Gwen flees as Frederick pushes an iron bar toward the beast. The inspector tries to fight the creature, but his actions are limited. Fortunately, the beast is drawn to Gwen, who runs into the forest, leaving Frederick behind. The inspector picks up the silver blade and follows them. The family mansion is consumed by fire as the pursuit continues in the forest, with the werewolf chasing Gwen and Frederick's men searching for the beast. Gwen tries to hide, but the creature tracks her by scent. She runs desperately for her life and eventually reaches a dead-end waterfall. She looks around, and suddenly, the beast emerges. Gwen points her gun at the werewolf and tries to reason with him, believing that within that creature, Lawrence will hear her. However, the bloodthirsty monster attacks her and pins her to the ground, fixing its eyes on her. Gwen, fearing the worst, tries to awaken the good side of Lawrence while Frederick's men approach the scene. Gwen, realizing she cannot save Lawrence, shoots the beast in the chest with a gun containing silver bullets. The shot causes Lawrence to return to his human state. He is relieved to see her and thanks her for making that decision. He then dies in Gwen's arms. It all seems to end, but Inspector Frederick arrives and realizes he is no longer useful at the scene. However, as he observes the moon, he prepares himself because he was bitten by Lawrence and is destined to transform into another feared creature under the power of the full moonlight.